Hi, everyone. Welcome to We Didn't Turn Out Okay. Today, I'm really excited that I'm going to be talking with Sabrina Rudin. But before, I just want to call out that we have our healthy, friendly, since I know zero terms about this, water bottles.
Plastic-free.
Yeah, plastic-free. I feel like I subconsciously brought mine.
Because you knew you were going to be with me.
Exactly. We can put them down so they're not a distraction. But Sabrina is just really inspiring and helping parents know how to make healthy lifestyle choices for their families. And I feel like you do it in a really accessible way, which we'll get into. She's the founder and owner of Spring Cafe Aspen in Aspen and New York. And your Instagram is Spring
by Sabrina.
Spring by Sabrina.
I have to change it.
Where she shares recipes, lifestyle, and just all the things. Really authentic and honest and open, which I've always loved also and appreciated. Can you give listeners like a little tidbit about who you are in your own words?
Sure. Well, you just gave such a lovely intro. And we go back a long time. We're friends and we share mutual friends. So it's really fun to be here with you and like to see everything that you've built. So thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming.
Thanks. I founded Spring Cafe in Aspen it'll be 12 years ago this summer. And it started as just a small vegetarian restaurant to fill a need that I thought something was missing in town, where people could get really nutrient-dense, organic, vegetarian food to complement the very active lifestyle in Aspen. I was living there after college. That's when I got the idea for it. And it grew into this brand. I was able to open a second location in New York and also sort of build my own personal brand around it, where I share just everything about eating clean, eating healthy, natural organic products and lifestyle choices, and basically all the things that I was raised with, because that's how my parents raised me, but in a way that, I guess, as you said, feels a little bit more approachable or accessible in our current world. And
when people, I feel like, will get into a little bit, or they might go to your page and might immediately not know that until you dig deeper and see each post and see that this is really how you live. You're not just like sharing an aspirational, like, try this once and you'll never be able to maintain it.
No, this is how I live.
Right. So
all the
I
time.
feel like when you really live a way, it feels accessible, you know, when you really are practicing what you preach. Like, if you're able to do it, we could do it.
I think we can do it. I think it just, it takes a little bit of awareness.
Right.
And I really believe that most people, all moms especially, all moms want to make the best choices, especially make the best choices that they can for their family. And sometimes people don't even know that there's a different or a better option or just another way.
Right. And that's what I feel like you make.
I like to just present another way.
Right. Like, I'll always remember, like, around Halloween, you sharing candy that actually healthy, just healthier options. And it was like, oh, I've like seen those. I just didn't know that that's better than, of course I knew it was a little bit better, but just like if you're using it, it sort of gets that stamp of approval, and you're not sourcing from like, inaccessible places. It might not be as accessible as like down the street at CVS, but yeah.
Most of that candy you can get on Amazon. You can get some you can even get at CVS now, because luckily we live in a time where brands like that are becoming more readily available, and things like the FDA banning, red food dye is happening. So it's like you said, that sometimes it's people who can afford I use afford in terms of many different meanings, can afford to make a different choice, just don't even know that there is a different or a better or a healthier choice.
Yes.
And I really love sharing that with people, because when you get someone who's like, oh, I could do this too, then we all benefit.
Yeah. And I just want to like give that disclaimer that, of course, yes, it's not accessible to every person in the world for unfortunate reasons, all the different, accessibility in different communities. And also the disclaimer that I don't live the way you do, but
We'll get there at the end of this podcast, Jenny.
Right. I'm like, it's totally possible. And yet, this is the first time I haven't had the plastic water bottle. But yes,
see,
everyone gets the
baby step.
Yeah. Yes. And you really inspire that. But let's dive in. You're a mom, obviously, to 3 kids.
Yes.
And can you share their ages?
Yes. My oldest just turned 9 this weekend. So we had a packed birthday Super Bowl weekend. And then my middle is 6. I have 3 boys. And my youngest is 3. So 3, 6, and 9.
Lots of boys.
Lots of boys. A lot of energy.
And just because you mentioned it was his birthday, I feel like it would be helpful to share the story you just shared with me earlier about, was that at his birthday or the Super Bowl?
No, that was at his birthday. It's funny because, I posted a picture on stories that a lot of people responded to. Everyone in a positive light, the people were really cracking up because where we did his party, I wasn't able to bring in food. And one of the things that I'm like infamous for on just not that I have a huge following, but on my social media is swapping out and always bringing options for my kids' birthdays or their friends when they were younger. I used to just, ask the mom what kind of cake they were serving and then bring the exact same thing dye-free. And it worked for us and it worked for my kids. And as they got older, now they make their own choices with the food. But there are certain limits that I set that they really respect and are okay with. And so at his birthday, the event venue wouldn't let me bring in any food. It was
I didn't realize. So he knew ahead of time that he was...
And he knew, and I was
going to have like mommy's food.
No, and I think he wanted that kind of food because it was part of the experience.
Right.
So I said, great, no problem. We'll choose the best options from the menu, and I'll bring in a cake, which he was really excited for. He told me exactly the cake he wanted. He said he knew it would be dye-free and gluten-free, and he knew where it was coming from. He loves where I get the cake. And it was really funny because he had a plate full of like buffalo wings, pizza, fries, ranch dressing, and something else. And I just posted a picture of him eating it with the caption because people sometimes say to me, actually not a lot of people, but some people just, they'll write like a snarky, or sometimes they genuinely ask, do you ever just throw caution to the wind? And I don't really throw caution to the wind with food. I throw caution to the wind with other things because food for me is such a core value. But in this case, I quote unquote threw caution to the wind. And so I posted, like, when everyone asks if I ever just surrender, this is me, period, surrendering, period. And people were cracking up. And then, so he was able to have all the food he wanted and then his healthier cake. But it was a fun, like...
And he said to you that he's in heaven, right?
He ran up to me and he said, Mom, heaven, I'm in heaven. But then what was so funny was after he ate it, I said, is that the best food you've ever had? And the night before I had cooked his birthday dinner with all of our homemade food and vegan Caesar and his favorites. And really genuinely, he said, no, like it was fun, but last night was better. And I think it stood out only because when you do it in a way that's foundational for them, my tagline is always taste buds are made, not born. Because people always say to me, how do you get your kids to eat salad and not chicken fingers? And I always say, well, they don't come out of the womb craving chicken fingers. That is a learned behavior or taste. And it was just interesting that he loved it for the moment, but after all the junk food, he was very happy to go home and have like a healthier. He was very happy to sort of go back to that on his own, not because I said anything, but just because he was like, it's good, but I don't feel the best after all that.
He's like, I just want you to know, I like appreciate that I got to have this. Yeah. Like, not even treat, but just, No,
and I didn't even frame it as a treat. I just said, it's your birthday and this is where you wanted to do it. And with that comes all this food and it's all delicious and it looks really great. Not like, oh, you're eating bad food today. I never make anything.
Complaining about it ahead of time that
you're
having.
Never. I just draw my limits where I have my limits. And so when we got there was a whole fridge of soda. And I'm not comfortable serving other kids Coke or Sprite or even my own kids. That's just my line. And I said, you can have all the delicious food you want. The soda's still off limits. And he was like, okay. And I had them bring up vitamin waters, which are dye-free, but in all the rainbow colors, and Minute Maid juices they had. and water bottles. And they just put it out on the table. And truly not one child went to the soda fridge. They locked it for me, and they were very happy with the vitamin water, which is just another lesson. I think that people always think it's really hard to ask for things or to stand up for yourself, or they say like, oh, well, this is the world we live in.
Right.
It's the world we live in, but generally there's some options. And I went up very nicely to one of the managers and I said, I might be the most annoying parent you deal with today, but I just can't serve soda. Could you do these options instead? And if you have to charge me a little extra. And she was like, it's really no problem. I totally appreciate that. And I'll happily do this. Yeah. And, I think if you don't ask, you don't get. And with that one simple ask, I felt really good that kids were getting a better option that probably made their bodies and the remainder of the day easier for their parents than if they had all drank 2 Coca-Colas or a Sprite. So sometimes it just takes like a little bit.
There's like so much
of an option or an
in
ask.
There. Like you're also like, even if your son didn't see what you did, but he sees the result of it. You're modeling, asserting what's important to you. And as you said, what's a core value now for your family. So if you don't ask, you're sort of not asserting yourself. If you're just like succumbing to this is the world we live in. You can say that about so many things. And of course, we have to like pick and choose like what feels important to us. But there's something that you said, and this is not the point, but it just reminds me of me a little bit. You're like, I might be the most annoying mom ever. And it's like, why do we do that?
Oh, preface it with that?
Right? Like we're like apologizing.
Yes.
And like I do it times a million. But and again, like, I don't know if your son heard or not, and it's one time, but there's just something there about, like, not feeling annoying for it.
I know, and just asking for what you want. Like, just walking up and saying, I don't want to serve soda. Can you please give me these
and that, like,
options?
That energy or tendency, even for your kids, as you said, it's important to them, it seems clearly, and not having them feel, like, apologetic about it and stuff. It's just something to think about that I actually have to take my own, drink my own Kool-Aid there.
Of why do we make why are we self-deprecating about it?
I know. And it's like, so that's something that clearly
That's a whole other conversation.
I know. I'm like, that is not the point.
But we can go
but
there
we can totally go there. I just wanted to like say something also about this, when we're not withholding, just kind of like the kid that, you don't let them have any screen time and then they like want to sneak and have screen time. The kid that never has a birthday with food like that and then wants to sneak and have it. Like, how do you think about that?
I think it's a few-part answer.
Yeah.
One, I think I've never set this dichotomy of like forbidden, not forbidden, good, bad. You had Tova Klein on the podcast. She's been along. One thing that I took from her when my first was a toddler that truly like changed a lot of things for me was I think it's in her book, How Toddlers Thrive. And then I also think I've heard her speak about it or she's reiterated it to me, understanding like control and children. And she always said, I think it's in her book in one of her anecdotes, if your kid asks for gummy bears at 6 a.m. with their breakfast, your inclination is to say, no, no, no. And then your toddler's screaming, but I want gummy bears. And it just turns into a power struggle. Right. In which case, your toddler will always win because if anyone has a toddler, you know that you are no match for them. Like rational, thoughtful adults, no match for a 3-year-old toddler who is temporarily possessed by a demon because they want gummy bears at 6 a.m. So my kids frequently do this, like not the older one, but like, Ollie likes to get up and say he wants a treat, or he goes to the fridge and says he wants raisins, or we had brunch at Spring the other day, breakfast for my son's birthday, and the 3-year-old wanted a chocolate chip cookie. And so I just say, okay. And Tova's point is if you give it to them, usually what happens is they'll eat one gummy bear and then happily eat the rest of their breakfast. That is truly what happens, at least for me. Like, Ollie took one bite of the chocolate chip cookie and then had a huge plate of eggs with kale and broccoli, a Go Green scramble. But one reason that I feel comfortable doing that is because everything in my house or the restaurant is something that I feel okay giving them. So I say that only to illustrate that there's never a battle in my house, because if they come home from school and they're like, we want a bowl of ice cream, I say, great, you have a sweet tooth. I have a sweet tooth a lot of the time. Have a bowl of ice cream. Go in the fridge or go in the freezer and help yourself.
There's ever motivation to live like you, right?
But it's a bowl of ice cream. They pull out the ice cream and it's either, Coconut Bliss, or it's something homemade, or it's from Glaze Organic Farms and it's just dates and banana and mint and cacao. And I have absolutely no issue with them having a bowl of ice cream at 2 p.m. because sometimes I want a bowl of ice cream at 2 p.m. And I really think that kids are much more self-regulatory than we give them credit for. Most kids are not going to go sit and eat 7 bowls of ice cream and make themselves sick. Like, most kids are going to eat a bowl of ice cream, enjoy it,
scratch the
and
itch.
Then
I was going to say, it's also a component of like trust in them.
Yeah, and also just to let them regulate their own tastes. I've always thought it was funny how, especially in our very heightened, like super aware, we're raising conscientious, aware children, right? We talk to children about race. We talk to children about fairness. We talk to children about judgment. But for some reason, food, which is, in my opinion, perhaps what we eat, how we nourish our bodies and our minds, probably one of the most important things, and relationships just to have for your whole life, which will impact everything from your mental health to your physical health to your spiritual health. We're like, oh, we'll just glaze over that and we'll order a chicken finger and a Coca-Cola and they'll figure it out one day. So just as we have your daughter, came home from school and said, Mom, and brought up a question about race or about something they saw on the street or about class or about fairness or about kindness or about gender, you'd have a conversation. So for me, it's always the question is, well, why wouldn't we just do the same thing about food and nourishment? And what's really interesting is there's been a lot in the news about food dye, and the FDA just banned Red 3. And we've had that conversation too, just as you would have if you were like, you know what, now this has been recognized, talking about race or talking about kindness or gender, and now he picks up on that and he's like, oh, so now even the government says this isn't good for you. I think it's just, it's not really about deprivation. Right. It's about a conversation in which you have a value system like you would with anything else in your life. And
but without that conversation, it feels like a deprivation to
without the conversation, without the context.
Right. Or just rule setting for sake of rules without including your children on why.
Exactly. I think if it just becomes another set of rules or a because I told you so or because it's bad, that's a completely different conversation.
Right.
But if it's done, and I think this is what I try most to sort of share on my Instagram or in my other work, not at Spring, is if it's a value system and a conversation, like most things that are important to us in life, then our children learn it and understand it and absorb it and take from it what they will, like they will with anything else. Can I guarantee that this is how my kids will grow up and choose to eat this way? Absolutely not. Just no more than I can guarantee that they'll be a kind or a good or a fair person.
But on that note, you said that you were raised this way. So do you feel that there's some nuggets in how you were raised on why you decided or made the decision to maintain that, to meet your now husband and clearly tell him from the get-go, I'm sure, this is what we're, not up on the first date. I'm saying when you made the decision to raise a family together and to,
I think
it was important to you to keep.
Sure. No, I mean, anyone who meets me within 5 minutes knows this is important to me and, because it's so much a part of my identity. But
but you could argue that people are raised maybe kosher or Orthodox or vegetarian or just, and don't continue that. Not always. I'm just saying as an example.
I think that the biggest reason that people do things in life, choose it of their own, and I mean this for everything, in life and business and relationships, the reason we keep doing things and hobbies is because it makes us feel good. I really believe that. I think humans are very driven by what feels good.
And so the way that you were raised, it felt good.
When you eat this way, whether you deviate. Now, I took plenty of sour apple blow pops. I went to my friend Heidi Bauer's house and would order all the delivery pizza with the gooey cheese and the gluten crust and the Italian dressing that my mom was like, in our house. But at the end of the day, when I got to high school and I noticed that I didn't have the PMS cramps that my friends had, or I didn't come to school with a huge bag of Tylenol and Advil, and I wasn't getting headaches every day at 4 p.m. And my friends were like, oh, like, what's in your, like, what are you bringing? What's that stuff you're eating? It looks good, and can we share it with you? And like, they felt really good after eating it. I think that starts to make an impact. And for the most part, I felt really good, and I noticed those things. I really noticed. I have very vivid memories of 4 p.m. or 3 p.m. rolling around every day, and the girls on a field hockey team or a cross-country team or an after-school kind of feeling really crappy because of all their sugar and their white flour and everything else they'd eaten that day, and they were taking an Advil or a Tylenol to feel better, and then they were more exhausted. And I really wasn't. And I think that, yes, how my mom raised me, but really when you lay a foundation that allows people to feel good. I mean, even my 9-year-old, when he eats all that crap, he came home and the thing he wanted to eat most was the leftover salad. I had made a vegan Caesar version of a Molly Baz recipe and for his birthday the night before. And he went to the fridge and he's like, I just want to eat the leftover salad.
Right.
Because I think just intuitively he knows that's what'll feel good after all the stuff he's just eaten at his birthday. Not that he doesn't enjoy it and didn't love it, but he was like, for dinner, I want to eat this with whatever else I'm going to eat, because he's old enough to make the connection.
Exactly.
But that doesn't just magically happen, right?
No.
It's not like, it's like how we teach children about self-esteem or kindness.
I was just going to say, the impact that you've had is because you've also allowed those conclusions to be made by them, right? Like when you were just getting into self-esteem, or I'll like beat you to it if you don't mind, like,
you can always beat me to it.
And you can share too. But you know, if your kid comes home and is like, I'm the worst at everything, it's one thing to say, no, you're not. What are you talking about? And it's another to say, what makes you feel that way? I got something wrong in math. Oh, so I know that you said that Jake got that other thing wrong. Is he the worst at, helping them create their own conclusions instead of telling them, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like laying that foundation on how they can answer those questions and have conversations with themselves. And I feel like you've done that with food, right? Like you're not like, what I said the other day when Matt came home with Gatorade. I'm like, that is not anymore. This has been banned. And like, just, when you're with conviction of wanting to make a point, like you can't do that. Same way when our kid comes home and is like, I'm the worst at everything. You want to so badly just like say these blanket statements instead of like inviting them to kind of like learn. And I don't know if that's what you were going to say.
No, but we want to sort of like lay down the law or give, but it's not about just giving the answer. They have a foundation of being in a dialogue about food and nourishment and feeling good.
And you said it right.
That is something they can return to.
In it, right?
Yes.
You haven't just like given them, rules to abide by, which I know we talked about, but just the inclusion of them in a lot of this is so key. I mean, in all of it. Are there ever times you feel like you can't maintain or you have to drop the ball, like in your own sort of sanity as a mom? Like, for instance, making their lunches or their breakfasts or their dinners, and just like if there's times you don't, like I'm sure you have lots of hacks and shortcuts, but in my mind that comes to mind for me, and I'm sure listeners, like I don't have the time to create this lifestyle.
So I think
'cause some of it takes longer.
I think some of it takes longer, but I actually it doesn't really take longer. I think it's a myth that to eat this way takes longer or more effort, or you have to be a certain way to think up these things. I mean, my middle son gets a turkey sandwich almost every day for lunch because that's his favorite lunch: turkey, lettuce, and veganese.
When you first said that, I was like, oh, there's no way that she gets.
I do. I get sliced, roasted, organic.
You get like a big turkey and
meat. No, I do not roast my own turkey. He wouldn't eat it even if I did. I get the Applegate Farms organic. And is everything perfect? No, but is it so much better than if you were to make an uninformed choice? And I always talk about purchase power and why I like to talk to moms who are in a position to be able to make these choices, because the biggest power we have in this country is with our dollar, right? So if all of us who can afford to make the better choices, we send a message to the food companies that will impact the choice that everybody gets to make and eventually trickle down to places where people can't afford to make any choice.
Right. But that being said, your husband was traveling with some of your kids. I act like you have like a whole camp, but two of your
three
kids.
feels like a camp.
So do you have to like set him up for that?
He left a day later. He did it himself. But again,
it's not like you met him.
The groundwork is also in place, because any snacks he grabs from the house are there. He also has eaten this way for 16 years now and feels really good. I mean, did they get like a high chew with him while they were skiing? Probably, most likely, yes. Would they eat like at, something in the airport that I probably wouldn't eat? Yeah, but that's their thing. That's like a fun thing with Dad. But did he also pack 7 organic turkey sandwiches, peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, like choms, bars, fruit, and all their usual stuff? Yes, they also had that. So I didn't even think twice about it.
And do they ever see sort of, like let's like circle back a little bit to, when you're like, I might be the most annoying parent. I was going to say, do they ever see sort of not battles, but just, and not hardship, but just kind of what hoops it takes to just like really advocate and assert, like I'm sure all the day camps our kids go to every day. It's like one of those Italian ices or ice pops, and
I'm the mom who makes the camp switch the ice.
Right. I
Luckily,
didn't even need to ask you because I figured you did, and in like the most like wow way, not in a she's so annoying way.
No, I mean. Probably they would say I'm very annoying. No, I mean, I think
like I'm just picturing like if they hear phone calls you make, like they have to conclude a little bit. Like it takes a little bit more.
I think they understand, which I understood from my mom. I think they understand how much I care and the effort that I put in. My son will say all the time, 2 of them will say like, oh, Mom, you cook a lot, or like you cook a lot in the kitchen, or it takes a lot of time to make this, or, they know that I'm on the food committee at their school. Though full disclosure, I think the rest of the food committee couldn't deal with me. So now I just am the food committee at their school, because everybody was like, we're out. Like we're good. You take it away. So, they'll say like, oh, snack was good this week. We have gluten-free pretzels now. Did you do that? And I'll say, well, there's a lot of people working hard to make sure that the food you get is the best quality that we can get in a school, but Mom really cares about this, and I want to make sure that all kids have a good option. So yes.
They see how important something is to us. Do you feel like they feel that's in competition with them? I gave you the example that like I'm adamant about every knot being out of their hair before bed. Like I didn't even realize it until my daughter the other day was like, Mom, enough. And I'm like, no, there's still knots. She's like, it doesn't have to be perfect. And I was just like, you're right. But then I realized like how deeply uncomfortable it is for me to like picture her going to sleep with knots. And then I know she wakes up with more knots. And so I'm just saying like, this is important to you. So similar to like, these knots in the hair to me, do you feel like you said they get annoyed, that they feel like come be with us instead of the cooking, or I don't know.
I don't think they ever feel a competition. I think sometimes my oldest will be like, chill, Mom, it's okay. Like, you don't, like, if he doesn't eat the best breakfast, or like he only eats half his,
he's going to be okay.
He's like, it's okay, Mom, chill. And I have to remind myself that it is going to be okay. Or, the other night, my littlest was screaming bloody murder. Like he had stayed up too late, and it was disastrous bedtime, like screaming. And it was actually same birthday weekend. He had chocolate cake still all over his face.
Oh my God.
There was no way we were brushing teeth. No way. And like he hadn't taken any water. He was going to fall asleep on me. The only way I could somewhat console him was to turn all the lights off and basically just hold him on me and like, because he was so tired that eventually he would fall asleep. And I kept trying to force the water bottle into his mouth to be like, because it was so uncomfortable for me to think like, you are going to go to sleep with cake in your mouth and you're not going to rinse it and you've been crying. So you're probably dry and hoarse.
Right.
Like I was projecting all this stuff and he didn't even notice, like didn't want the water.
He's
Just
like,
wanted to go to sleep. And he literally, even my 3-year-old was like swatting it away. He's like, Mom, stop. I don't want water. I'm not thirsty. And I'm like, how can you not be thirsty? You've been screaming for 45 minutes. You have cake all over you. Your face is red because I couldn't put your cream on. You haven't brushed your teeth. And I thought to myself, I was like, he doesn't want the water.
Right. And like none of that
He
is
can
as important
sleep
as like
without the water. It's my discomfort. It's not his discomfort.
Right.
All I have to do is tolerate it and it will go away and he'll be fine.
Yes. It's like realizing our discomforts. And sometimes, again, as we alluded to earlier, like they're the mirrors of that. And so I was just curious if they ever, that's like such an example, like give you that reflection of.
I think they're always the mirrors of that. There's had to be a lot of like letting go.
Right.
And tolerating discomfort. But for me, it's not always so much in the food area. It's more like anxiety or, just
Right.
like your kids kind of hold up a mirror and they just show you what is still very unhealed or what is still a work in progress. I mean, I struggled with like debilitating postpartum OCD after my first. And many things, like when my, one will get upset or his own anxiety that trigger me.
Right.
That I realize that's something I still have to work on. And for me, the biggest lesson with them, with anything that triggers me, is just tolerating discomfort. My mom is very anxious and tends towards OCD. And, when I was younger and would say, oh, what if, all my what if thoughts, I think my parents sometimes believe the thoughts in my head. And then you believe the thoughts in your head. So it's
instead of being able to like.
Instead of being like, oh, that's a thought. You don't have to believe all the thoughts in your head. You're literally just having
like,
nothing bad is happening right now.
Or like help you realize it's just a thought. Like,
right. So like I did CBT.
Like, yeah.
My son does CBT. We do space. Like I think for me, it can be very, like that's why probably the water and the mouth and like the cake trigger. Because I'm like, oh, what if? And I'm like, oh, no. Those are just thoughts. He can sleep with the chocolate on his face and no water in his mouth and without the dry skin cream.
But we were just told that we're running out of time. So we can wrap this up by
got the like.
Yes, we did. That's never really happened. No, and I think it's good to like leave in that like clearly we have so much to talk about. But can you tell people where they can find you? We talked about Spring Cafe, but just on
You can
Instagram.
find me at Spring Cafe, which is 14 West 4th Street here or in Aspen on Spring and Hopkins. And you can find me at Spring by Sabrina if you want to know more about all this food and health and
highly recommend
wellness and lifestyle.
Yes. Thank you so much for being on here, being
Thanks
so
for
open.
having me. I'm so proud of you.
Thank you.
Built such an amazing thing.
Thank you. And thank you all for listening.